There's a truth about XRP that almost nobody understands. A truth so obvious, it's hidden in plain sight. And yet, if you walked into any trading forum or crypto chat room today, you'd find less than 1,000 people who actually get it. Because what's happening with XRP right now isn't just about price, it's about power. It's about who controls the future of global liquidity, and who's quietly preparing to use the technology that most of the world still thinks is just a coin. Welcome back to Crypto Equation, where we uncover the moves behind the market, the facts, the strategies, and the quiet revolutions that are shaping the future of finance. For years, XRP has been at the center of controversy, lawsuits, and debate, but that's exactly how revolutions always start. Loudly at first, and then silently once the real work begins. Because while most people were arguing online, Ripple was building, connecting banks, forming regulatory partnerships, and establishing technical foundations for the new financial internet. And here's the secret very few understand. Ripple has already won the most important battle. Not on price, not in media perception, but in infrastructure positioning. While the rest of the crypto market focused on speculation, Ripple aligned itself with the one thing that matters most in global finance: compliance. That's what only a few insiders have noticed. Right now, Ripple's technology is being integrated into systems that the average investor doesn't even know exist. Behind closed doors, banks, payment providers, and even governments are testing Ripple's on-demand liquidity, quietly building corridors that will move billions once the lights are fully switched on. This isn't theory. It's documented in financial filings, patents, and partnerships that only those who dig deep enough ever find. It's the kind of information that never makes headlines because it's designed to operate under them. That's why less than 1,000 people, the analysts, institutional insiders, and researchers paying attention, know what's really happening. Let's look at one simple example. When ISO 20022 went live globally, it wasn't a surprise to Ripple. It was their roadmap. RippleNet has been ISO 2022 compliant since its early days. That means more than 10,000 banks that now use this messaging standard are technically aligned with Ripple's architecture. That's not coincidence, that's design. The new global financial standard has Ripple's fingerprints all over it, from data formatting to cross-border interoperability. The only thing left to do is activate liquidity at scale, and that's what's happening right now, quietly, one corridor at a time. Most investors still believe adoption will look like flashy partnerships or sudden price spikes. It won't. Adoption looks like paperwork, like integration checklists, like silent upgrades happening inside banks you've never heard of. That's what the 1,000 people know, that the biggest financial revolutions don't begin on exchanges. They begin in infrastructure. When that infrastructure is finally revealed, the market doesn't rise gradually, it reprices instantly. Let's talk about the network effect. Every new institution that joins RippleNet increases the value of every other participant. A payment provider in Singapore connected to one in Brazil automatically connects both to the United States, the UK, and beyond. It's exponential. Right now, more than 70 countries already use Ripple's corridors in some form. That's 70 pieces of the puzzle in place. And every corridor opened makes XRP more liquid, more useful, and more valuable. This is what very few understand. XRP isn't waiting for adoption, it's already happening, but adoption in finance doesn't go viral, it scales in silence. If you've ever wondered why XRP's price doesn't reflect its potential, this is why. Because the infrastructure phase doesn't excite traders, it frustrates them. They want movement, headlines, emotion. But real builders care about reliability, compliance, and scalability. Things that take years, not weeks. By the time price catches up, the insiders have already positioned themselves. That's why the saying goes, the real money is made before the announcement. And in XRP's case, the announcements are just the confirmation of work that's been done for years. Now here's something that only the deep researchers know. Ripple's influence isn't limited to banks. They're embedded in the conversation around central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. They're advising policy teams, building pilots, and offering interoperability solutions between currencies. The reason this matters is because CBDCs aren't isolated. They must connect to something global. That global bridge, XRP, Ripple doesn't need to issue a single CBDC. They just need to connect them. And when every major currency, dollar, euro, yen, has its digital twin, there must be a neutral asset to move between them. That's XRP's purpose. The 1,000 people understand that this isn't a guess, it's a necessity. Now let's connect another piece of the puzzle, tokenization. By 2030, experts expect tokenized assets, everything from real estate to stocks, to exceed $16 trillion. Those assets will live on various blockchains, but they'll still need liquidity between them. That's where Ripple's infrastructure quietly fits in. Ripple already acquired Mataco, a Swiss custody platform used by banks for tokenized assets. That means Ripple doesn't just provide the bridge, they now control the vault. They've positioned themselves on both ends of the future financial pipeline. That's the kind of strategic move only insiders noticed, and exactly the kind of move that ensures XRP will one day be indispensable. The biggest misunderstanding about XRP is that it's waiting for hype. It's not. It's waiting for activation. The rails are built, the compliance frameworks are ready, the liquidity corridors exist. The only thing missing is full-scale volume. And when that volume begins flowing, repricing won't be optional. It'll be mechanical. That's the moment insiders are waiting for, because they know once Ripple flips the switch, it's too late to position. So what exactly will flip the switch? What's the signal that separates the noise from the moment the world quietly reprices XRP forever? It won't be a tweet, a headline, or even a sudden market rally. It will be a systemic necessity. When global payment networks and central banks realize they can no longer operate efficiently through outdated rails, they'll have to choose between two options: keep using legacy systems that take days to settle, or move to digital infrastructure that works in seconds. And when that decision arrives, Ripple's network will already be the path of least resistance, pre-approved, compliant, and ready to scale. That's what the insiders, the 1,000 people, already know. This next phase won't look like hype. It'll look like silence. There won't be fireworks, but there will be contracts, agreements signed behind closed doors that quietly connect one country to another, one payment network to the next. Then, suddenly, data starts showing billions in monthly liquidity flowing through corridors that didn't exist the month before. That's the start of the liquidity migration event, the real repricing trigger. Because when XRP stops being traded and starts being used, price stops being emotional and starts being mathematical. Here's the secret. Every major institution on the planet is preparing for a liquidity crunch. Debt levels are at record highs. Global interest rates are volatile. And central banks are running out of options to stabilize value. That's why interoperability is no longer a luxury. It's survival. And the one asset built for that purpose is already waiting. Tested, fast, regulatory compliant, and institutionally integrated. That's XRP. So when the liquidity crunch begins, there will be a rush, not into hype coins or speculation, but into bridges that work. And those who understood that early, even if they only held a small position, will be sitting on a front row seat to the next monetary reset. Let's make something clear. This is not conspiracy, it's economics. Every 50 to 70 years, the world's financial system resets itself. Gold to the dollar to debt, debt to digital liquidity. That's where we are now. The dollar system isn't vanishing, it's evolving. The next system won't run on paper promises. It will run on code and interoperability. That's why central banks are experimenting with digital currencies. That's why ISO 20022 exists. That's why Ripple has been in those rooms, quietly shaping the next global standard. The average investor still thinks XRP is just another altcoin. The 1,000 who truly understand know it's a bridge to the post-dollar world. So how will this transition actually look? It'll begin with pilot corridors scaling quietly, a few countries settling payments faster, a handful of CBDCs integrating Ripple's ledger for interoperability. Then, suddenly, one major payment network announces it's switching to blockchain settlement, maybe Visa, maybe SWIFT, maybe a global consortium you've never heard of. That announcement won't shock insiders. They'll have seen it coming months earlier. But for the world, it will mark the beginning of the XRP utility era. From that moment on, volume won't stop. It'll grow quarter after quarter, flowing billions in XRP liquidity through every cross-border channel. And with each new corridor, the old price becomes unsustainable. That's when the repricing begins. The invisible event only 1,000 people expected. But let's take a step back. Why so few? Why is it that only a handful of people truly understand what's happening? Because the story was never designed for retail. Ripple didn't build for hype. They built for integration, the slow, regulated, often boring process of compliance, audits, and institutional onboarding. Most investors don't have the patience for that. They want fast action, not quiet transformation. But the world doesn't reward impatience. It rewards foresight. And that's why the people who've paid attention, who read the filings, track the corridors, understood the architecture, will be the ones who aren't surprised when it happens. Because they didn't buy the story for the chart, they bought it for the system. Now let's talk about the emotional side, because conviction isn't easy. Holding XRP through the last few years hasn't been fun. It's tested belief, patience, and logic. But every cycle has a psychological threshold, a moment when exhaustion peaks right before recognition hits. That's where we are now. The lawsuit is behind us, regulation is aligning, Ripple is expanding faster than ever, and yet the public still thinks nothing's happening. That's how you know we're close, because disbelief always peaks right before revelation. What most people don't see is that Ripple has quietly moved beyond remittances. They're positioning themselves as the enterprise liquidity provider for everything, not just payments, but tokenized assets, stablecoins, and central bank digital currencies. Their network isn't limited to cross-border transfers, it's becoming the settlement layer of the new Internet of Value, and XRP is the bridge asset that powers it. That's why central banks, financial institutions, and fintechs are engaging with Ripple even if they never say it publicly. They're not doing it for speculation. They're doing it because they need the infrastructure that works today, not in theory, but in production. And that's the kind of adoption that never goes viral, because it's already happening. Now imagine this moment, maybe a year from now. Ripple announces its institutional network has surpassed $1 trillion in monthly settlements. Banks report record savings in liquidity costs. Governments acknowledge blockchain-based cross-border transactions as standard practice. At that moment, the narrative flips forever, and the people who laughed at XRP will realize they were never supposed to understand. Not yet, because this wasn't built for traders. It was built for the system itself. There's another hidden truth here, something that the 1,000 people understand intuitively. Once an asset reaches systemic importance, it stops behaving like an investment and starts functioning like infrastructure. You don't trade infrastructure, you depend on it. That's the future of XRP. It won't be pumped or dumped. It'll be priced in the same way the internet is now part of every modern economy. Ubiquitous, invisible, indispensable. And the moment that transition completes, XRP's market cap will stop being speculative. It will represent the sum of the world's trust in digital settlement. That's $1 trillion revaluation, and it's already in motion. So if you're listening to this right now and you hold XRP, whether it's 10, 100, or 10,000, understand this. You're already part of the 1,000, the ones who saw what others couldn't, the ones who read the signs, not the headlines. Because what you hold isn't just a token, it's a position in the foundation of the next financial system. And that's something only a few will ever truly understand, until it's too late. When history looks back at this decade, it won't remember the lawsuits or the price charts. It will remember the quiet years, the years when Ripple built the rails that carried the next global economy, the years when a small group of people understood that the future of money wasn't physical. It was programmable, liquid, and borderless. Those people, the 1,000, will never have to convince anyone again, because when the system activates, the world will finally catch up. And when that happens, they'll simply say, "We knew." If you've been following the logic and not the noise, then you already know something massive is coming. And when it does, it won't feel like a pump. It'll feel like the world catching up to a truth you already understood. This is Crypto Equation, reminding you that the future of finance isn't decided by hype. It's decided by those who build it. Stay informed, stay patient, and stay ready, because the system's about to wake up. And when it does, you'll be one of the few who can say you saw it before the rest of the world did. This is Crypto Equation, and I'll see you in the next one.